Hello, homesteaders. We're here at the homestead and we're in front of our greenhouse. I wanted to show you first of all how we built it. Like everything else here on our homestead, it's made out of used materials. Things that people wanted to discard, I pick them up, I stack them, and I use them eventually. This greenhouse is built with a bunch of old windows. I didn't even realize I had them. I'd had them for so many years. I finally realized they were there and I just need them on the south portion. The roof of this greenhouse is made with tempered glass. On these glass windows, they're about 75 by 35 approximately. And they're the size of a sliding glass door. And when one of the panes gets broken, and that's usually what happens, it doesn't go all the way through both panes. When one of the panes gets broken, you end up with a perfectly good piece of tempered glass, and you can pick them up for 10 to 15 bucks a piece, and that's really cheap. The problem is with tempered glass, you can't cut it down. So you have to build the building around the size of the glass that you have available. The good thing about tempered glass is that it's extremely tough and hail resistant. It's about as good as anything. Now, if the hail gets big enough, there's nothing that's going to stay together. I mean, it can go through a solid roof. So there's no perfect hail-proof solution. But this one's pretty darn good. And the nice thing is it's so cheap that you could easily replace it all in the event that you got wiped out by hail. So tempered glass on top. And then what we did is we built 4 by 8 frames. And each one of them had a couple of legs that go into the ground. It's basically a pole building. And so we could build each one of those panels and then we just set them together. And it's about as simple a building as you're ever going to build. The sheathing is on, we're ready to go. Now basically this is a pole barn. It's all made with scrap materials. I bought just a few pieces of lumber, but not very many. We had junk laying around here. The windows were all scrap. We'd like to show you the rainwater catchment. You see the rain gutter here. This is 44 feet long, and we catch all the rainwater. Comes right down here to our tank. And then we pump the water from here into the barrels inside. It makes it a lot more convenient for us to have it right next to our growing and our laundry operation. This is a buried tank. Again, this was given to us by a neighbor. It actually blew on her property 30 years ago. And it's sat there, and one day she said, "You want that thing? I don't think I'm gonna use it," after 30 years. And I said, "Well, yeah." So this is a 3,000 gallon tank. I'll open it up here. And what we're doing here is we're going to catch all of our gray laundry water, the water that we use for the laundry. In the summertime, we use it almost all immediately. But in the wintertime, we can't use that much water because we're not watering as many plants. So we'll put all of the extra in here, and that means we'll be starting out our growing season with 3,000 extra gallons of water ready to go. In this case, we have a window on each end so we can let the breeze pass through, and we don't have to have a fan. We make all of our own electricity, so not having to have a fan is a pretty good idea if we can get by with it. Now, we did put a sunscreen. We're in Colorado where the sun is very intense, and we're at 6,000 feet here. We put a 50% sunscreen on the whole roof, and that would have been really appropriate in just about any summer that I've gone through here. I've been here since 1963, but it wasn't good for this year because it's been so hot. We've had so many triple-digit days, very unusual, more heat than I've ever experienced since I've been here in Colorado, and it really slowed the garden down. So you kind of have to build around what happens 99% of the time. You can't always be building for 100% perfection. It doesn't work that way. So this year, the garden has been a real disappointment due to the heat. Everybody is experiencing the same thing. So that's our little building. The door was, we added the screen door on. so that the cattle and the goats that walk around here sometimes can't walk in and destroy all of our plants. Also keeps out a lot of the insects, but we have to have a lot of air moving through there, so we leave the doors open during the day to let a lot of air go through. Well, come on in and take a look. Now, this little greenhouse also is our laundry. You see down here, we have a couple of buckets, and you can see another YouTube production on our laundry operation. It tells you how everything works. But it's real handy to have it in here. Where we live is very windy and very dusty. So if you look up here, I have the clotheslines right in here. And so I can do laundry anytime. And if it gets windy and dusty outside, it's fine. Everything still works for us. And we have 6 people living here in our little community. And we all do our laundry right here. And it's always worked out very well for us. Another thing about doing the laundry here is that we have the water right close to us. So we have 3 50-gallon barrels of clean water, and this we use for our laundry. We use a special soap. All of this is in the laundry section, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about it. But we use a special soap that will not hurt the plants. So we can use all of our water again to water the plants. And so it makes it very efficient. And water is the most important problem that we have out here, getting enough water. So we use all the water 2 or 3 times. So that is the laundry operation. Now let's talk about growing food. Take a look at the size of the plants. We're in August now, about the middle of August. Now typically, I would have been giving away tomatoes to all of my friends because I would have so many of them. But due to the heat this year, it's just starting to cool off a little bit, and I'm just starting to get some good tomatoes. And you'll see this is really late in the year to have all these blossoms, but I'm hoping that we will make up and be able to have tomatoes later on. I have several varieties of tomatoes here. They're all miniature varieties. Cherry tomatoes, grape tomatoes, little bell tomatoes, etc. And the reason for that is we have such a short growing season. I can't grow a big fat tomato. Typically, if I try, I end up with a big green tomato just as frost time comes along. Now, another thing you'll notice here is we have 15 barrels here, white barrels. Those are what are called SIP planters, sub-irrigated planters. And that is key to our operation. They work great. There are several other YouTube presentations about the SIP planter, so you can go there. Here you can actually see how they're working. You'll notice the size of the plants, the general health of the plants. That's because we're planting in 100% compost. The SIP planter allows us to save 50 to 80% on water. It's very efficient in the way it uses water, keeps the water right where it's needed. Also, we can amend the soil, it's not soil, it's 100% compost. We can amend the compost for tomatoes and peppers. Every plant has something that it likes. And so we can amend that 100% compost so that we get maximum yields. The other thing that we have to do is, because actually this is a pretty small space if you look at the amount of space that we have for planting. So what we have to do is keep planting. The minute we get something that's done, there were peas in here. We took those peas out, immediately planted. Now we've got spinach coming up here in a couple of these. Sometimes I'll plant even down at the base of the tomatoes. That hasn't been particularly successful, but I thought I'd give it a try. And well, here we've got lettuce and green peppers. And this is another strange thing that happened this year. I finally am getting some green peppers, but look at the size of those leaves. That is not desirable. Again, the heat just made everything weird and complicated. If you've been gardening very long, you'll know that you never really get there. There's always something that's going to be a challenge in every season. This year, it's been the heat. We've just replanted this one here. I think we planted spinach in this one. And then we've got more salad greens, celery, got some peas coming up here, peas with lettuce, and more lettuces. So we eat a lot of lettuce. I really recommend that you have a greenhouse if you can. Even a very small greenhouse is a great help. It gives you a place to start your plants. That allows you to have different varieties that you're not going to buy at Walmart. Walmart, has a few varieties of a lot of different things, and I do go there and I do buy some of their plants. But if I really want to get real specific about plants that'll do well in our climate, a lot of times I have to go through a seed catalog, and that means I have to start those seeds. And so that being the case, it's really great to have a greenhouse because it allows you to start earlier and you are growing stuff later. Typical season here, if I didn't have the greenhouse, would be June 1 to October 31st. And that's pushing the limit on the October 31st. It may have a hard freeze sooner than that. That's not much of a growing season. With the greenhouse, I can add, up to 2 months. It really depends on the weather in that particular year. But I can get another 2 months of growing season. And of course, depending on the plants, lettuce and spinach you can do most of the year. Basilica you can do most of the year. So that's our little greenhouse. I really recommend to everybody, if you can put one together. This greenhouse didn't cost much money. We just built it out of scrap materials. And for the service that we get out of it, it is really a great addition to our homestead. Thanks for being with us. Remember to keep your eyes on the sky and your hands in the dirt. He is coming back soon.
Yes, we're all in a master plan. Though the things we do are just grains of sand. When these things are touched by the master's hand, then our lives turn into mountains in a master plan. Yes, our lives turn into mountains in a master plan.
Acting and such an actor as myself, I think maybe, I probably should hire somebody different to do all this production work. It's apparent that I'm brilliant. I can't understand why we don't have more success.